Thanks to CuriosityStream for keeping LegalEagle and bees everywhere in the air.
He's denouncing bees!
And don't y'all date your cousins?
Objection!
Ah, the non-lawyer makes an objection. Hey Legal Eagles, it's time to think like a lawyer. Today we are covering the highly requested Bee Movie, an animated movie about bees that sue humanity for stealing their honey. I think this is the movie I was born to review. Be sure to comment in the form of an objection, which I will either sustain or overrule. And stick around until the end of this video where I will give the Bee Movie a grade for legal realism. So without further ado, let's dig in to the Bee Movie.
Good evening. I'm Bob Bumble.
And I'm Jeanette Chung.
Our top story, a Tri-County bee, Barry Benson, is saying he intends to sue the human race for stealing our honey, packaging it, and profiting from it illegally.
All right, so right out of the gate, big problem with Barry's lawsuit. You cannot sue the entire human race. To sue a party in court, they have to be a recognizable entity that can be sued. An individual, a corporation. Who would show up? Who would hire the attorneys? Who would be the material witnesses in this case? All of those are reasons why the human race is not a party that has standing to be sued in court. But it's similar to when people have tried to sue God in federal and state court. Every few years you get one of these jokers who thinks it would be cute to name God as a party, and every time it is rejected. Sometimes the courts just dismiss the case out of hand because there's no way to properly notify God because God doesn't have a fixed address to accept service of the lawsuit. And other times they will let the lawsuit go forward and let the case go into what's called default, which means that the propounding party wins because the other party didn't respond. But the problem is there's no way to recover whatever winnings you might be entitled to from God, so it's a Pyrrhic victory in either case.
Quiet, please. Actual work going on here.
Is that same bee?
Yes, it is.
I'm helping him sue the human race.
What?
Okay, so not only can an individual not sue the entire human race because that lawsuit would fail, a florist cannot help you sue another party in court. That is called the unauthorized practice of law. So she can actually get herself into trouble for practicing law when she doesn't have a law license.
Maybe this could make up for it a little bit. You know, Barry, this lawsuit's a pretty big deal.
I guess.
Are you sure that you want to go through with it?
Am I sure? When I'm done with the humans, they won't be able to say, honey, I'm home, without paying a royalty.
Okay, well, one of the reasons you hire an attorney is so that you can file your complaint that starts the lawsuit in a way that the court will accept. You cannot mail in your complaint to most courts. You have to actually go down to the courthouse, file the complaint itself, and serve that complaint on other people. Here, what Vanessa has done is she's just put a document into the mail, mailed it to the court, and nothing is going to happen. They will probably just throw that out because that's not the proper way to start a lawsuit in New York. Also, if we can rewind it, we can see that she's also addressed the complaint to the wrong place. She has addressed her complaint to the Superior Court of New York. Now, while the Superior Court is the correct court in California, the trial court in New York is actually called the Supreme Court. I think the writers for the Bee Movie probably work in Los Angeles or California where you call the trial court the Superior Court. That's not the case in New York, so there are many, many reasons why this complaint would be rejected by the court in New York.
All right, case number 4475, Superior Court of New York, Barry B. Benson versus the honey industry is now in session. Mr. Montgomery, you're representing the 5 major food companies collectively.
A privilege.
Okay, so this is interesting. They actually rolled back the lawsuit when they got to court itself. Instead of suing humanity, they are only suing 5 farmers who happen to keep bees and happen to harvest and sell the honey. This lawsuit also doesn't work, but for slightly different reasons.
Mr. Benson, you're representing all bees of the world?
I'm kidding. Yes, Your Honor, we're ready to proceed.
All right, so what Barry Benson is trying to do here is what's called a class action lawsuit, where a few representative plaintiffs claim that they are representative of a larger class of people, and as a result, they claim that they should be able to prosecute the lawsuit on behalf of all of those people who are similarly affected. So, would Barry Benson be able to proceed further with a class action lawsuit? Well, let's think like a lawyer. Going with the federal definition, there are some requirements that you have to meet before you're able to proceed further with a class action lawsuit. In the federal system, this is governed by Rule 23 of the Federal Rules of Civil Procedure, which requires you to have 1, an adequate class definition, 2, that the class be ascertainable, 3, that there must be numerosity, in other words, a lot of people, 4, there must be commonality amongst all of the class members, 5, there must be typicality between the representative plaintiffs and the class members, 6, you have to have adequacy of counsel, and 7, you have to meet some other requirements to show that class action status is warranted. Here, all of those requirements are not met. Number 1, there is a terrible class definition. They've defined the class as all bees. Well, some bees haven't had their honey taken. Some bees have had their honey taken in different ways. So the class definition is necessarily problematic. Number 2, the class has to be ascertainable. There are billions, if not trillions of bees out there, and there is no way to identify the individually affected bees. 3, numerosity, there's a lot of bees out there, that probably would be met. But number 4 is that there must be commonality amongst all of the class members, and because different bees are treated differently, there's not enough commonality amongst the class to move forward. Number 5, there's no reason to assume that Barry Benson is typical of all of the other class members. Number 6, adequacy of counsel is definitely not there. Barry's not even a lawyer, so he can't even proceed with this proceeding, let alone adequately represent the actual class members that he's trying to move forward with. And for the same reasons, all of the other requirements of Rule 23 are not met as well. So basically, this class action is absolutely doomed to fail, and it would not move forward in any way whatsoever.
And Mr. Montgomery, your opening statement, please.
Opening statement? You don't go straight from the first hearing and filing a complaint right into trial. That's totally ridiculous. There would be years of pretrial discovery and motion practice before you even got to trial, let alone trial happening on the first day.
Ladies and gentlemen of the jury, my grandmother was a simple woman.
Why is there a jury in this case? That also doesn't make sense. And I've mentioned this a million times before. You don't get to go straight from counsel table, walk right into the well of the court, and then go straight at the jury. Judges and juries really hate it when you invade the personal space of the jury, and if you are aggressive about it, the bailiff will tackle you.
Talking bee. How do we know this isn't some sort of holographic motion picture capture Hollywood wizardry? They could be using laser beams, robotics, ventriloquism, cloning. For all we know, he could be on steroids.
That is completely improper argument and would be stricken from the record.
Mr. Benson.
Again, he's not a lawyer. He doesn't get to give an opening statement.
Ladies and gentlemen of the jury, there's no trickery here. I'm just an ordinary bee.
And again, you don't get to fly straight from counsel table directly to the ledge in front of the jury and then give your opening statement. You're invading the personal space of the jury, and both the jury and the judge are not going to allow that.
And as a bee, honey's pretty important to me. It's important to all bees. We invented it, we make it, and we protect it with our lives. Unfortunately, there are some people in this room who think they can take whatever they want from us because we're the little guys. And what I'm hoping is that after this is all over, you'll see how by taking our honey, you're not only taking away everything we have, but everything we are.
Okay, so bees are what we refer to in the legal world as chattel. Almost all animals are. It means that they are animate objects that are owned by some other human. And it is fully within the right of the owner of the chattel to get the fruits of those particular animals, whether it's milk from cows, or whether it's eggs from chicken, or honey from bees. If you own those animals, generally you are entitled to what they produce. But if bees somehow were able to prove that they were conscious and fully sentient, then they might have a conceivable argument that taking honey from them is a form of conversion or theft, to which they would be entitled to some compensation. Animal rights activists have tried to give rights to lots of different animals in different contexts. For example, the famous selfie picture that was taken by a particular monkey. But until that time, animals do not have the same rights as humans. They cannot file a lawsuit, they cannot defend themselves in court, and they do not have property rights.
So, Mr. Klaus Vanderhayden of Honey Farms. Pretty big company you have there.
I suppose so.
And I see you also own Honeyburton and Hunron!
Yes, they provide
Relevance.
beekeepers for our farms.
Beekeeper, I find that to be a very disturbing term, I have to say. I don't imagine you employ any bee freers, do you?
No.
I'm sorry?
Objection argumentative.
No.
No, because you don't free bees. You keep bees.
Objection argumentative.
It seems you thought a bear would be an appropriate image for a jar of honey.
Well, they're very lovable creatures.
Objection relevance. Why is this relevant?
See bear? Oh, build a bear?
Yeah, you mean like this? Bears kill bees!
All right, so in addition to being completely irrelevant to the court proceedings, I probably don't need to tell you that when you bring a demonstrative into court, this is a demonstrative, something that you bring into court for demonstration of some particular idea, it cannot be a lethal animal. It cannot be really probably any animal at all unless it was like a service dog. This is completely improper. This would be thrown out immediately and probably a mistrial declared.
Well, I just think it was awfully nice of that bear to pitch in like that.
I'm telling you, I think the jury's on our side.
Are we doing everything right, you know, legally?
I'm a florist.
Exactly. She's a florist. Why is she sitting at counsel table? Why is she helping with this lawsuit? That is the unauthorized practice of law.
You know, I've just about had it with your little mind games.
What's that?
Italian Vogue.
Mamma mia, that's a lot of pages.
It's a lot of ads.
Remember what Van said? Why is your life any more valuable than mine?
That's funny, I just can't seem to recall that! I think something stinks in here!
So we learned earlier in the movie that bees cannot be struck by paper of more than 30 pages. In a world where bees are sentient and conscious, I think attacking a bee with a magazine of that size is probably attempted murder. So, you know, tell that to all your kids, I guess.
Mr. Benson D., I'll ask you what I think we'd all like to know. What exactly is your relationship to that woman?
Relevance? Character?
Good friends?
Yes.
How good do you live together?
Wait a minute, this isn't
Are
about...
you her little bed bud?
Hey, that's not the kind
I've seen a bee documentary.
People and bees should be making objections right now.
Queen give birth to all the bee children in the hives?
Yeah, but...
So those aren't even your real parents.
Oh, Barry.
Yes, they are.
Improper character relevance.
Legitimate bee, aren't you, Benson?
He's denouncing bees!
And don't y'all nature cousins?
Objection.
I'm gonna pin...
Ah, the non-lawyer makes an objection.
Adam, don't! It's what he wants!
Oh, I'm here!
Didn't that bee just commit suicide? Important to note that one of the reasons we have a legal system in the first place is so that we don't have to rely on violence to solve our problems. And the bees here are supposed to be the good guys. They're trying to get a just outcome from their lawsuit. And yet the bee co-counsel here has given in to his aggression and he has attacked the opposing party, the opposing attorney, with his venomous stinger. That's not something that you would want an officer of the court to do, and if in fact he was a real lawyer, he'd probably get disbarred for that.
And assuming you've done step 29 correctly, you're ready for the tub.
Yeah, you don't get to talk to the jury like that without the presence of the judge.
Mr. Flayman,
Yes, Your Honor.
where is the rest of your team?
Well, Your Honor, it's interesting. You know, bees are trained to fly kind of haphazardly, and as a result, quite often we don't make very good time.
So I should point out, if you are not in court when the judge tells you to be in court, you are in a world of hurt. Judges hate it when lawyers don't show up on time. They can issue sanctions, and in the worst case, they can dismiss your case for not showing up on time. And on further inspection, that co-counsel B has attacked the opposing counsel. There is absolutely no way that he would be allowed to sit at counsel table anymore. Number one, he would be arrested. Number two, the judge would probably have to declare a mistrial because of the outburst that occurred. It's not fair to either party to have to proceed with a tainted jury as a result of the lawyer's bad conduct in assaulting each other.
How much longer are we going to allow these absurd shenanigans to go on? They have presented no compelling evidence to support their charges against my clients who all run perfectly legitimate businesses. I move for complete dismissal of this entire case.
So this happens a lot in movies where the opposing side will say that the other side has presented no evidence whatsoever and the case should be thrown out. And usually when they say that, it's at the beginning of the case when there wouldn't actually be any evidence. Here, the plaintiff Bs have had ample opportunity to demonstrate the validity of their case by presenting evidence, and they simply haven't. They've engaged in a bunch of shenanigans, they have not presented any relevant evidence, and as a result, the opposing side here is making a motion to dismiss the case. That is actually something you can do in a real court case. You can move for what's called a directed verdict or a JNOV. It basically just means that the plaintiff hasn't met their burden and there's no reason in proceeding into the defendant's case because the plaintiff hasn't met their evidentiary burden in the first place. So this is the first accurate thing that this movie has done. This is the time to make a motion for a directed verdict.
Where's your proof? Where's the evidence? Show me the smoking gun!
Hold it, Your Honor! You want a smoking gun? Here is your smoking gun!
What is that?
It's a bee smoker.
What, this? This harmless little contraption? This couldn't hurt a fly, let alone a bee.
So this is somewhat relevant evidence. You would use the smoke gun to demonstrate that the bees haven't consented to having their honey taken away from them, which is one of the elements you have to show for theft or conversion. That being said, there are so many other hurdles here that this would be just a tiny bit of relevant evidence. It really doesn't get to the end of the court case, but still, at least it's relevant evidence for once.
Ladies and gentlemen, please, free these bees!
The court finds in favor of the bees!
Yeah, that's something that happens in movies all the time. It does not happen in real life at all. The judge cannot decide in the middle of the court case to just grant the verdict in favor of the plaintiffs. This would be overturned on appeal immediately because the defendants have been denied their due process.
Congratulations on your victory. What are you going to demand as a settlement?
First, we're going to demand a complete shutdown of all bee work camps.
Yeah, that would not happen.
Then we want to get back all the honey that was ours to begin with. Every last drop.
So, when you win a lawsuit, generally you are entitled to monetary compensation. You can sometimes get back the actual physical things that you feel you are entitled to. That is a legal concept called specific performance. You are getting the defendants to give you the specific thing that you think you're entitled to. Generally that happens in real estate cases because real estate is always unique, but if it's possible to give financial compensation, the court almost always will give financial compensation. And there's no reason that the bees couldn't be given financial compensation instead of a return of all of the honey. On top of that, all of the things that they are getting in this potential settlement would never be given by the court. It's completely unrealistic and would never happen.
We demand an end to the glorification of the bear as anything more than a filthy, smelly, big-headed, bad breath stink machine. I believe we're all aware of what they do in the woods.
Wait for my signal.
Take him out.
We'll have a little nausea for a few hours, then it'll be fine.
Yeah, if you're entitled to compensation for your honey, you don't then get to assault other people for some weird reason. Why the bees hate the bears, that's a whole separate issue, I guess.
And we will no longer tolerate derogatory bee-negative nicknames. But it's just a Pranceabout stage name.
And that's a First Amendment violation.
Health products and la-di-da human tea time snack garnishments.
And there's no reason why an injunction would be granted to prevent people from using the honey that's already in the stream of commerce. Okay, so that's the Bee Movie, but how realistic is it? Well, it's time to give the Bee Movie a grade for legal realism. The Bee Movie effectively gets everything wrong about lawsuits. Bees and florists cannot be lawyers. The process by which the court proceeded in this case is completely wrong and would be grounds for appeal. Everything that happened in that case is completely unrealistic. About the only thing they got right was that the opposing attorney made a motion for a directed verdict at about the right time. So I give the Bee Movie a solid B for legal realism. Actually, I'm just kidding, it gets an F. It's terrible. It's the most unrealistic thing I've ever seen in my life. But, you know, kids movie, so what are you gonna do?
If you don't move, he won't sting you. Freeze!
The Bee Movie teaches us that it's okay to be curious about your world. It also teaches us that it's hard out there for a bee. Even though bees can't sue humanity, they are facing a crisis of extinction. After watching the Bee Movie, I pulled up a great documentary about bees on CuriosityStream called More Than Honey. It talks about this worldwide bee phenomenon, why bees are in danger, and what we can do about it.
I'm just saying all life has value. You don't know what he's capable of feeling.
Real bees are not as cute as the Bee Movie, but they still play a vital role in our ecosystem. If you're as curious about the world as Barry B. Benson, you should check out CuriosityStream. Legal Eagles will get a free account on CuriosityStream for 31 days by clicking on the link below or using the promo code LegalEagle. Using the promo code really helps out this channel. So click on the link below and check out the greatest documentaries on the planet. So, do you agree? Leave your objections in the comments, and check out my other lawyerly reactions over here in this playlist, where I will see you in court.